I know what you're picturing. Matted hair, brown teeth, a smell that could knock out a horse. And look, by your standards, an ancient human would not exactly smell like a laundry commercial. But the truth is stranger, and a lot more interesting than everyone stank. Because two things are true at once. First, our ancestors were almost certainly cleaner than you think, and second, your idea of what clean even means is barely 100 years old. So let's start with how a person actually got clean in a world with nothing on the shelf. It starts with the obvious thing: water. Humans have always lived near it, and we've always gotten in it. Rivers, lakes, hot springs, the sea. You don't need soap to get most of the grime off a body. You need water and friction. So people scrubbed with whatever worked. Handfuls of sand, smooth clay, wood ash, which is mildly alkaline and actually cuts through grease. Rub any of those on wet skin, and you strip away dirt, dead skin, and a surprising amount of the bacteria that make you smell. It isn't a hot shower, but it's a lot closer to clean than you'd guess, and some people had something better. Long before factory soap, certain plants did the job for free. Soapwort, yucca root, and a handful of others all contain natural compounds called saponins that foam up into a real lather when you crush them in water. People learned exactly which plant in their landscape made suds and used it like shampoo. The chemistry of soap was understood too. We have clay tablets from ancient Babylon, almost 5,000 years old, describing how to boil animal fat with ash to make a cleaning paste. They had soap. They mostly used it on cloth and wounds rather than armpits, but the knowledge was there. The Greeks and Romans took it somewhere stranger and kind of brilliant. They didn't lather up, they oiled up. You would coat your whole body in olive oil, let it sit, then take a curved metal tool called a strigil and scrape it all off. The oil pulled dirt, sweat, and dead skin loose, and the blade dragged the whole greasy mess off your body in one pass. Then you went and soaked in a bath. The Romans were, frankly, obsessed with bathing. Public bathhouses were where you washed, exercised, gossiped, and did business, sometimes for hours a day. A Roman would have found the idea of a quick solo shower deeply sad. Now, for a lot of history, cleaning was powered by exactly the things we now find revolting. And that other thing you've heard, that everyone in the past was terrified of water and never washed. That's mostly a myth about a few centuries in Europe, when people wrongly believed bathing opened your pores and let in disease. Step outside that narrow window, and most cultures bathed often, sometimes every single day. Then there's the part everyone assumes was a disaster: teeth. No toothbrush, no toothpaste, surely just rot and pain. Except, no. For thousands of years, people across Africa, the Middle East, and Asia cleaned their teeth with a chew stick, a frayed twig from specific trees, most famously one called the miswak. You chew the end until it splays into bristles, and you scrub, and it works. The wood carries natural antibacterial compounds, and it is still used by millions of people today. But here's the genuinely surprising part. When you dig up the skeletons of ancient hunter-gatherers, their teeth are often better than ours. Fewer cavities. The reason is simple. Cavities are mostly fed by sugar and processed grain, and they barely had any. The explosion of tooth decay didn't come from being primitive, it came later, from farming, and then from sugar. For most of human history, the human mouth was in better shape than yours probably is right now. Hair was its own battle, and the enemy was lice. Everyone fought lice, and we know exactly how much it was on their minds. A few years ago, archaeologists translated one of the oldest complete sentences ever written by humans, scratched into a tiny ivory comb from around 3,500 years ago. It wasn't a prayer or a law. It said, more or less, "May this comb root out the lice from the hair and the beard." People combed obsessively with fine-toothed combs, and they picked through each other's hair by hand, pulling out lice and nits one by one. And that wasn't only hygiene. Grooming each other is one of the oldest social bonds there is, the same thing our primate relatives do. Cleaning was something you did together. It quietly said, "I've got you." As for smell, people didn't try to erase it. They worked with it. Scented oils, crushed herbs, flowers, resins, smoke. They also scrubbed with natron, a natural mineral salt, the very same stuff they used to preserve mummies, now pulling double duty as a cleanser and a breath freshener. Smelling good was a craft. It was just built from plants and fire instead of bottles. So, the question you actually came here for, did they reek? Honestly, probably less than you imagine, and for a few reasons most people never think about. The first is diet. Body odor is heavily shaped by what you eat, and a diet without processed sugar, heavy dairy, and industrial meat produces a much milder smell. The second reason is your own nose. Smell is relative. Your nose quietly stops noticing any scent it is surrounded by all the time, which is why you can't smell your own house. But a visitor can. In a world where everyone carried the same light, natural human smell, There was no sharp contrast to flinch at. Nobody walked in reeking of fabric softener to make everyone else seem disgusting by comparison. The baseline was just people. You would notice it. You would not gag. Which gets to the real twist. The thing that actually changed wasn't how clean we got. It was what we decided clean should smell like. And the answer we landed on, smelling like nothing or like a fake forest, is a very recent and very strange idea. For most of history, cleaning yourself was a chore you did with a river and a twig. Then, in barely a century, it became an industry. Cheap factory soap, indoor plumbing, and hot water on demand made daily bathing normal for the first time in human history. And then came the strangest part of all. In the early 1900s, companies that sold deodorant had a problem. Almost nobody thought they needed it, so they ran advertising campaigns that, quite deliberately, taught people to be ashamed of their own bodies. One famous campaign convinced women that their natural smell was a secret, humiliating flaw that was quietly driving people away from them. Mouthwash brands pulled the same trick, taking an obscure, medical-sounding word, halitosis, and turning ordinary morning breath into a shameful condition you had to buy a cure for. It worked spectacularly. In a couple of decades, an ordinary human smell went from unremarkable to a genuine source of anxiety. We didn't discover that we stank. We were sold the idea. Which brings it back to you. Standing in a bathroom stocked with more cleaning products than a Roman emperor could have dreamed of, slightly panicked at the faintest hint that you might smell like a person. Your ancestors stayed clean with river water, ash, a chewed twig, scented oil, and the hands of the people who loved them, picking through their hair. They were not filthy. They were clean by a definition that didn't require buying a single thing. The dirt washed off the same as it does now. What's new isn't the cleanliness. It's the shelf of bottles and the quiet belief that got sold to us alongside them, that to be acceptable, a human being has to smell like anything other than a human being. If you made it this far, you're exactly the kind of person I make these for. Subscribe, and we'll go find the next strange thing together. We didn't really invent cleanliness. We invented the idea that we were dirty and then spent a fortune washing it off.